The Pirates head to Seattle for a holiday weekend series, riding a hot streak. Can they stay that way after the off day? That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. Fireworks in the sky, hot dogs on the grill, and baseball on the radio. It's the 4th of July, and there's nothing more American than that. Today, we're going to dive into the red, white, and blue heart of the game we love, starting with the Bucks today in Seattle and finishing with two stories of the greatest to ever do it in black and gold and military fatigues. What better way to start off the day than with some red-hot Pittsburgh Pirates baseball? Buccos are heading west this weekend for a 3-game set against the Seattle Mariners at T-Mobile Park, and they're doing it with some serious momentum. Pittsburgh just wrapped up a perfect 6-0 homestand, sweeping both the New York Mets and the St. Louis Cardinals in dominant fashion. And when I say dominant, I mean it. Pirates outscored their opponents 43-4 over those 6 games. That's not just a hot streak. That's historic. And speaking of history, Mitch Keller added his name to the record books this week, becoming the all-time strikeout leader at PNC Park with another strong outing against the Cardinals. Pirates are clicking on all cylinders right now. Pitching, hitting, defense, you name it. Now they'll look to keep that fire burning against the Mariners team that just split a 4-game series with the Kansas City Royals. Seattle dropped the finale 3-2 on Thursday, and they'll be looking to bounce back at home. Let's talk matchups. The Pirates just changed all of their pitchers to TBA. So I'm not 100% sure what that's going to mean. I had heard Paul Skeens was supposed to go on Sunday. They're going to be doing some shuffling here. Who knows what that means? It could mean a call-up for all I know. But we'll find out. And when we do, I'll let you know. All I can say is today, the Mariners are sending out Brian Wu. He's been excellent this season. 7-4, 2.93 ERA. He's got a whip under 1. Saturday, Luis Castillo. Many of you remember him from all the way back in the Cincinnati Reds days. But he's a vet. 3.55 ERA. Knows how to miss bats. Killer changeup. Paired with a high-velocity fastball. Very hard to cover. George Kirby wraps up the series in Seattle. Years ago, this is somebody I really wanted the Pirates to trade for. But he's had a tough year. 4.85 ERA. He's still a tough competitor, but he's just not having the season that he's had. Some players to watch. Pirates, Brian Hayes has been on fire over his last 15 games. He's hitting over 300 with 10 RBI and a 500 slugging percentage. That's the most shocking thing, really, the slugging with Brian. We haven't seen that very much. 11-game hitting streak heading into this series. He's been a key part of the Pirates' offensive surge. On the other side, O'Neal Cruz has really been struggling. He's got elite speed and power. We all know that. He's second in the lead in stolen bases. He's been also leading all of baseball in strikeouts, unfortunately. Over his last 15 games, he's hitting just 153 with 22 strikeouts. Now, what's interesting about that is this has easily been the best stretch of offense this team's had. And they're doing that while O'Neal Cruz is doing this. So when we talk about what could make this whole thing real, well, one of their best players, or at least most gifted players, is not really helping all that much, and they're exploding offensively. For the Mariners, I mean, you got to know Cal Raleigh. He leads all of Major League Baseball in home runs and RBIs, and he was just named the starting catcher in the All-Star game. He's been the heart of Seattle's offense this year. If you want another hot bat, Randy Arozarena looks pretty good. He's hitting over 350 in his last 15 games. That's with 4 homers and 12 RBIs. And he just had a 6-hit series against the Royals. The Pirates pitching staff are going to have their hands full keeping these guys at bay. Now, if you want to talk cold, Jorge Polanco has been ice cold. He's hitting 215 over his last 30 games, 208 over this past week. But he's much better at home, so this series could be a chance for him to turn things around. Injury-wise, the Pirates are hoping to get Colin Holderman back, maybe even as early as today. And I've heard that Ryan Borucki could return later this weekend, but I'm not 100% sure if I believe that or not. Back issues tend to take a little bit longer, and I'm not really sure how the Pirates could fit both Colin Holderman and Borucki back onto this roster. We'll see what happens there. Pirates are 9-14 all time against the Mariners. They won their series against Seattle last year in Pittsburgh, the first series win over the M's since 2016. So there you go, a red-hot Pirates team, a tough Mariners squad, and a holiday weekend full of fireworks, both in the sky and on the diamond. First pitch is today, a little after 4 o'clock. So you should have plenty of time to get your grill ready. I think this is a good matchup for the Pirates, to be honest with you. The Seattle Mariners can hit, but they don't hit like some of these other teams that we've considered good. And with the Pirates pitching, you have to kind of like the matchup, because if you can keep their offense at bay, their pitching's good, but it's not good enough to win all on its own most of the time, unlike the Pirates. So I think you probably have a good matchup here. The Pirates should be able to take advantage of what they're presented with in this series. And I don't think anybody on this team really has a whole lot of experience playing out there, but I do think that it's not traditionally a hitter's ballpark, and I think it tends to even the scales a little bit, especially if you're not one of those home run hitting teams. Stay away from Cal Raleigh. Don't let Cal Raleigh beat you. I think he's probably the one you have to watch out for the most. He's in one of those heaters where it just seems like every time he makes contact, the ball's going to go 400 feet somewhere. And I want nothing to do with him if I'm a Pirates pitcher. I'm avoiding it at all costs. When we come back, we're going to do our special 4th of July stuff, and we're going to get started with Roberto Clemente. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. With Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. I hope you're all enjoying my festive shirt today if you've joined the YouTube version of this episode. We're going to start with Roberto Clemente. Before we do, hey, make sure that you have subscribed to the show and hit me with a like too. It all helps. Leave me comments. I really love interacting with all of you. In the fall of 1958, yeah, we're going way back before my time, but I think a lot of these things I learned from my grandparents and my parents, and I've done some individual research on it just because I'm so interested in this sort of era of baseball, and what these guys did side by side with their baseball careers is insane. But in the fall of 1958, as the leaves turned and baseball fans tucked away their gloves for the winter, Roberto Clemente made a decision that shocked a ton of people, I'm sure. At the height of his rising career with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the 24-year-old outfielder from Puerto Rico chose to enlist in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. This is close to me because my dad decided to join the reserves because he just couldn't stand being away from active duty, I think. But he ended up serving 33 and a half years in the Navy, so mostly via the reserves. So I have a soft spot for that. It's something that not everybody chooses to do, but those that do really deserve to be celebrated. While many of his peers spent the offseason playing winter ball or relaxing in the Caribbean sun, Clemente reported for duty at Parris Island, South Carolina. There, around all the swamps and sandflies, he trained not as a celebrity, but as just another recruit in Platoon 346 of the 3rd Recruit Battalion. The drill instructors didn't care about batting averages or gold gloves. They cared about discipline, grit, and teamwork. Clemente thrived. Out of 130 recruits, he was one of only 7 promoted to private first class. He later completed infantry training at Camp Lejeune, another one that brings it back for me. My dad also served and helped set up Camp Lejeune for years and years, so the connections are awesome. North Carolina, he was with the 3rd Battalion, 1st Infantry Training Regiment. For 6 years, from 1958 to 1964, he served as a reserve infantryman, balancing the demands of military service with the rigors of Major League Baseball. In 1959, spring training for the Pirates conflicted with his military obligations, and the team, recognizing his importance, asked for help from Pennsylvania State Senator John Walker. With the senator's support, Clemente was granted early release from training to rejoin his teammates. It was kind of rare to get that kind of accommodation, but it was one that kind of spoke to Clemente's unique role, both as a soldier and a star athlete. Despite the challenges, Clemente never complained. He saw his service as duty, both as an American and as a Puerto Rican. He once said, "I'm proud to be a Marine. The discipline and respect I learned there helped me in every part of my life." His military service wasn't just a footnote in his biography, it was a foundation. The humanity, discipline, and sense of justice he cultivated in uniform would echo throughout the rest of his life. Whether he was delivering food and baseball equipment to impoverished communities in Latin America or speaking out against racial injustice, Clemente carried himself with a quiet dignity of a man who had served something greater than himself. In 2003, long after his tragic death in a plane crash while delivering aid to earthquake victims in Nicaragua, Clemente was inducted into the Marine Corps Sports Hall of Fame. 15 years later, he was honored by the Puerto Rican Veterans Hall of Fame. A bust to him now stands at the Puerto Rican Veterans Memorial in Boston, a tribute not just to the athlete, but to the Marine. Roberto Clemente's story is often told through the lens of baseball. 3,000 hits, 12 gold gloves, 2 World Series titles. But behind the stats was a man who believed in service, on and off the field. His time in the Marine Corps didn't make headlines, but it shaped the hero that he became. Now, I didn't get to watch a lot of Roberto Clemente, obviously. I was not alive at the same time as him. but I know how he affected my grandparents. I know how he affected my father. My father, for those of you that haven't heard stories, not a huge sports fan, but he knew Roberto Clemente. He had met him once. To my dad, that was knowing him, and he would love to tell that story. Um, he was very proud that he served at Camp Lejeune too, and they would talk about how cool it was that that he was serving in a place that Roberto did. The respect that Roberto earned over his career was well deserved, and how much he loved this country, despite how he was treated sometimes in it. That's what is probably the most amazing thing, is that despite some of the challenges that somebody like Roberto Clemente had to overcome with, just in his own path through life, he didn't become bitter. He just became almost more appreciative. He worked harder to make it better instead of wallowing and wondering why it wasn't being made better for him. There's so much to love about Roberto Clemente and his legacy here in Pittsburgh, and the numbers are great. I read a couple of them, the 3,000 hits and whatnot. And, you talk about Andrew McCutchen passing him on certain lists, and people want to talk about how you can't even mention them in the same sentence. And I think that confuses some modern Pirates fans like myself who didn't grow up with Clemente. But when you go back and you try to research something like this, like a story that you just want to tell about their military service or whatnot, it's impossible to not come out of that understanding exactly why people feel the way they did. It makes you understand why they don't want his name mentioned with anyone, even somebody as saintly as Andrew McCutchen, because there is no other Roberto Clemente. There was him. That's it. I think it's important on this 4th of July to recognize the service that some of these guys gave to the country, and while they were entertaining us at the same time in many cases. It's amazing what he's done. Amazing the legacy he still has. Amazing that his number isn't retired throughout the game. Just for the reach that he has throughout an entire demographic. You will be hard pressed to find a Latin player that does not look up to Roberto Clemente. I think that the game is probably missing the boat on not retiring his number. I'm not here to argue about whether he's more important than Jackie Robinson or equally important to Jackie Robinson. I will just say that he's at least in the stratosphere. And if you're going to retire numbers game wide, I just don't think that you can stop short of getting to Roberto Clemente and adding him to the list. I think 21 should be retired throughout the game. And I think that Roberto Clemente has, just through my little research to do this story, made me 10 times prouder than I already was, which is saying something. Let's take another quick break. When we come back, let's talk about another hero. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. How about we jump into Ralph Kiner? I mean, we have one of his relatives playing on the team, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, so it makes a lot of sense. But before Ralph Kiner became a household name in baseball, before his booming home runs echoed through Forbes Field, and long before his voice became a familiar comfort to generations of New York Mets fans, he was just a young man with a glove, a dream, and a war to fight. He was born in Santa Rita, New Mexico in 1922, and he was raised in California. Kiner was a natural athlete. By the time he graduated from Alhambra High School, he had already caught the attention of Major League scouts. He signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates organization and began climbing the ranks of the minor leagues. But just as his baseball career was beginning to take shape, the world was plunged into chaos of World War II. In 1943, with the war raging across Europe and the Pacific, Kiner made a decision that would define his early adulthood. He had enlisted in the United States Navy. And I already said my dad's a Navy man, so soft spot, right? Like many young men of his generation, he didn't hesitate. Baseball could wait. The world needed pilots, and Kiner was ready to serve. He began his training at St. Mary's Pre-Flight School in California, a rigorous program that transformed athletes into aviators. The training was intense, physically, mentally, emotionally. Kiner, who had once focused on batting practice and fielding drills, now spent his days learning navigation, aerodynamics, and survival tactics. He was no longer preparing for a season, he was preparing for war. After months of training, Kiner earned his wings and was commissioned as a naval aviator in December 1944 at Corpus Christi, Texas. He was assigned to Kanoa Bay Naval Air Station in Hawaii, where he flew Martin PBM Mariner flying boats, large twin-engine seaplanes used for long-range patrols over the Pacific Ocean. These missions were no ceremonial duty. Kiner and his fellow aviators were tasked with submarine patrols, scanning the vast empty ocean for signs of enemy activity. The flights were long, often lasting 10 to 12 hours, and the threats of danger were constant. Japanese submarines still prowled the waters, and the Pacific was an unforgiving place for a downed aircraft. Kiner logged over 1,200 hours in the air during his service. He flew over open ocean, through storms, and under constant pressure of wartime vigilance. It was a far cry from the battlefields of California, or from the ball fields of California, or the minor league stadiums of the Northeast. Kiner never complained. He understood the importance of the mission. I didn't think about what I was giving up, he said later. You thought about what you were protecting. For nearly 3 years, Kiner put his baseball career on hold. While other players were making headlines and chasing records, he was flying patrols and serving his country. He rarely touched a bat during that time. When the war ended in 1945, he was 23 years old, older than most rookies and with no recent playing experience. But when he returned to the Pirates in 1946, he wasted no time reminding the world of his talent. That year, he hit 23 home runs. The next season, he led the National League with 51. From 1947 to 1952, Kiner led the league in home runs for 7 consecutive seasons, a feat unmatched in baseball history. His swing was powerful, his presence commanding. Fans flocked to see him launch balls over the left field fence at Forbes Field, where a section of the bleachers became known as Kiner's Corner. He was a 6-time All-Star, a slugger who could change the game with a single swing. But behind the fame and the stats was a man shaped by something deeper. The discipline, the courage, the perspective, those weren't just the result of baseball. They were forged in the cockpit, in the long hours over the Pacific, in the quiet moments between missions when life and death hung in the balance. After retiring from baseball in 1955, Kiner transitioned into broadcasting. He became the voice of the New York Mets, bringing his insight, humor, and charm to millions of fans. His post-game show, Kiner's Corner, became a beloved tradition. He interviewed legends, told stories, and never lost the twinkle in his eye. In 1975, Ralph Kiner was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. It was a recognition of his incredible achievements on the field, but for those who knew his full story, it was also a tribute to a man who had served with honor, who had put his country before his career, and who had returned not just to play, but to inspire. Kiner rarely spoke at length about his military service. Like many veterans of his era, he didn't seek praise or attention, but those who served with him and those who knew the risks he took understood the depth of his sacrifice. Ralph Kiner passed away in 2014 at the age of 91. He left behind a legacy of towering home runs, unforgettable broadcasts, and quiet heroism. His story is one of talent, yes, but also of duty, resilience, and grace. And perhaps in the end, that's what made him truly great. Look, baseball has always been woven into the fabric of America. Just like fireworks, freedom, the flag. And today, as we celebrate the birth of our nation, we're reminded that this game, like our country, is built on resilience, passion, and the pursuit of something greater. So here's to the Pirates, to the Mariners, and to all the teams taking the field this weekend. But most of all, here's to you, the fans who make this game what it is. Stay safe, stay proud, and enjoy the rest of your 4th of July. Until next time, let's go Bucks, and happy birthday, America.